I change your bum life. You fight me, it's a celebration.
I will beat you.
When you sign to fight me, it's a celebration. You ring back home, you ring your wife. Baby, we done it. We're rich, baby. Conor McGregor made us rich. Break out the red panties.
Let's get it all!
Yo, welcome back to the MMA Short Show. Is always your boy, Steven Moustaris. And guys, you know what? I just got done talking about, the BMF belt. I just did a video last week posting that, and, everybody had commented and everything. Guys, trust me, I appreciate the hell out of it. But, I try not to sit here and bitch too much. I try to just strictly talk about fighters and my favorite topics and whatnot. But, the one thing I am going to sit here and do, I try to sit here and mind my own business and whatnot. But, Dana White recently, this past weekend, right after the Mackenzie Dern, Angela Hill fight, like after all that nice fight card, it was some cool stuff. Joaquin Buckley's knockout, freaking Diego Ferreira pretty much reviving his career, Chase Hooper going 155, Anthony Hernandez doing his thing. And like I said, freaking Mackenzie Dern, pretty much, using the canvas as, her freaking, this is her time to vent and to get all her emotions out from, her divorce. That's all they were talking about. So, this is the beautiful things of the sport. And then, I got to watch the post-fight interview with Dana White like I always do. And, guys, I could be sitting here making the most clickbaity, thing of all time. I could be sitting here talking about, Francis Ngannou and Dana White's comments and how Dana's salty, all these things. You know what I'm saying? We could have been doing that like most people are. And, everybody's got their own opinion. Everybody's going to do their thing. I'm not going to break people down for that. But, the one thing I do want to talk about, and it just so happens to be just a little past its 10-year anniversary, man. It's just, Dana White's comments just this past weekend about, he was asked about why Paulo Costa and Sean Strickland, who are two top 5, competitors, in the division, they're matched up against unranked guys. And, it got to this whole thing about how Dana, talking about how his answer, I think it's like 20 minutes in, if you guys want to go watch it, in this previous, fighting like Vegas 73 or whatever, his post-fight interview and stuff. He's talking about, I think 20 minutes in, that he answers about somehow it just doesn't matter. It's not how we do things. Number 5 doesn't fight number 4, and number 5 doesn't have to fight number 6. Like sometimes you got to fight other people. And it had me, thinking. Like I just said, I just got done doing the BMF belt video and everything, and I appreciate everybody that talked about that. And it's just contradicting like what Dana's saying about how, like, there's times he's like, oh, we'll never see that belt again. No, Jorge Masvidal's not gonna ever, defend it. No, we're pretty much done with it. And then, bam, he throws it on Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier, to make a pay-per-view. And, I mean, I'm just saying, I think it's just so he can, prepare us for a Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler pay-per-view main event with no belt. So, all that stuff, he's trying to get views and shit, which I think is starting to get gimmicky already. And then now it's 10 years later that we've had UFC fighter rankings. In February of 2013, I remember it, like, they were doing their first TV deal with, like, I think outside of Spike, I think it was Fox or something. And, they just needed, they needed to show that number 1 versus the number 2. They needed that pretty number that boxing has. And, it has me reminiscing, man. My favorite times of the sport, dude, were when I first started watching it in the, the late 2000s. And it's like, man, you get to start growing with the sport, not only in general, just off the first time watching it, does the sport just speak to you? If you're a true fan of it, like, just the beauty of it, just the uniqueness of it, just the fact that it's not like boxing where they're only punching. Like, you got to use your entire body, your entire mind, everything. It's just, and then the different arts that there was, especially when when I first started watching, you still had the karate, you still had the wrestling, you still had basically one base of their MMA skill, and then it's evolved and everything. And one of the most beautiful things, and the thing that made it so sexy, is it's not like boxing. It's not where these guys are, getting protected, getting built up, and it's like, oh, that guy's 20-0 and that guy's 20-0 and they're champions and they haven't lost yet to anybody else. Like, they should fight. No. They're not 35-0 yet. They haven't made their millions. Let's have them fight that 20-20 guy that they know they're going to beat. Like, no such thing as that, the UFC and MMA. Like, that's why it's so beautiful. The best fight the best. And, then once they started, throwing in, like I said, 10 years ago at this rate, they throw in the rankings. They start pushing the rankings more and more. And then, like, we fast forward to today, and now it's like, just a couple months ago, Vulcan, Islam, they're shoving it down our throats. Number 1 versus number 2, number 1 pound for pound versus number 1 champion, like doing all these things. And then a couple weeks later, it's just contradiction. He's talking about how, oh no, it doesn't matter what your ranking is. And I think that's what's been hurting the sport. In my opinion, I really think it's been hurting it, just because it's like, man, like I said, when I first started watching it didn't matter. There was no such thing as rankings, dude. There was no such thing as picking your fight. Like, you had to go out there and perform. And guess what? Like, it's almost like it's as crazy as it is. Conor McGregor was still kind of in this time when he was first coming in, it was still where the UFC was like just matching people up. Like I know he had to fight Dennis Seaver at one point. Like that would never happen again nowadays. But no, they gave him a chance, and look what he did. He could have bitched and moaned, went out there and beat his ass. The same thing with Nate Diaz. Nowadays, that fight probably is never going to happen because they're not going to allow it because of the rankings and stuff. But hey, look what happens. He's talking shit. He goes to do it. So like even then, like even just 7 years ago or whatever, it's we still aren't seeing as bad as what we are now. Now it's like these guys get to the front line, they get a number 5 against their names. Like, oh, I'm not going to fight number 8 because it's just going to hurt me. What if I lose? And it's like it just hurts the whole thing. It's not guys going out there and fighting anymore. Like, I mean, these guys are still badasses. They're evolving. They're fighting. But I'm saying, like, once they get to a certain level, they kind of just – and it's not even the fighter's fault because they've seen other people get fucked when they try to fight and they lose their ranking, which means everything nowadays. Back then, it's like, fuck no. You telling me I could lose a fight, but all I got to do is win 2 or 3 more just impressive no matter who they put. It's all based on performance, and I can get that title fight. It allows people, like, guess what? Back in the day, there was some of the greatest things, even if we look back at 2012, 2011, right before the ranking system, like, dude, we wouldn't even have had some of these things if rankings were in the thing. Guys, you think Mark Hominick would have had a chance to fight Jose Aldo if it wasn't for no rankings back in the day and Jose Aldo being so dominant? No, guess what, though? Jose Aldo, the first couple rounds, looking like, oh, this shouldn't even be a fight. He's beating the fuck out of him. He had a huge hematoma on Mark Hominick's head. And then what do you think happens? Mark Hominick almost changes the world and beats the living shit out of Jose Aldo, almost finishes him in the 5th round. And people went nuts. And even in that same year, if you guys want to look, fucking Vitor Belfort versus John Jones. If it wasn't for John Jones running through Shogun Rua, Lyoto Machida, Ryan Bader, Rampage, Rashad Evans, like if it wasn't for him doing this, guess what? Vitor wouldn't have had that chance. And since Vitor was knocking people out and still TRT'd Vitor, don't get me wrong, they're like, oh, we'll make this fight. And guess what? Everybody wrote that off. Nobody watched it. And what do you think happened at the end of the 1st round? Fucking Vitor Belfort almost fucking finishes John Jones, almost changes the world. And it's like, man, even like the Gray Maynard, Frankie Edgar fight at that time, Gray Maynard probably wasn't ranked high enough to get a title fight. But since he had beat Frankie Edgar earlier in his career, like, oh, well, let's throw that in there. And guess what? We got 2 of the greatest fights I've ever seen back to back because they're beating each other's heads off for the fucking floor. And then Frankie Edgar runs back and then beats his ass. And it's some of the greatest stuff we've ever seen. And like Rashad Evans, Rampage, the things that we've gotten to witness over the years, these guys building up huge hype around fights. It's almost like, dissipating now. It's getting crazy. Now it's like, like guys like Bilal Muhammad and guys like this, like, oh, I'm number 3. I'm not going to fight number 5. And it's no offense to these guys. It's the system that we have nowadays, but it's starting to hurt the whole thing. And it's not necessarily the best are fighting the best anymore. And we're starting to feel it. And it's starting to suck a little bit. And it's not necessarily the sport of MMA whatsoever. It's more the UFC. And it's like, what made them so popular back in the day with them, the best fight the best. It doesn't matter who you are, as real as it gets, all these things. It's starting to kind of get gimmicky, guys. Like I said, I just did the BMF belt thing. I was like kind of worried it's going to getting gimmicky. And then now it's just the contradiction of Dana talking about how rankings at one point in time are the greatest thing ever. It's all that matters. And then the next second it's, oh, rankings don't matter. And it's like, which one is it? Because you're confusing us. And we just don't understand, like, what do you want us? What are you selling here? Because these guys get these high numbers and they're not getting title shots, and then you're giving guys like Colby Covington, or if you guys best believe if Conor fucking McGregor wins against Michael Chandler, that boy's getting a title shot in whatever division he wants. But you got guys like, again, Bilal Muhammad doing his thing, winning all these fights, and he's not going to get a title shot because of fucking Colby Covington, who's just sitting there but makes more sense. And it's like starting to get kind of, gimmicky again, starting to get kind of where we're like boxing, that whole thing where it's like, oh, we just pick our fights. We just pick our fights based off of views anymore, and not necessarily who's got the best, fight. And people like me and people like you guys probably watching, like, we're smart enough to know, man, these rankings nowadays, like top 15, bro, you know how many fucking killers there are in these divisions nowadays? We're talking at least 25 deep in some of these divisions that could beat each other any which night. Any guy from rank 19 to rank 2 could beat each other in any single night. And don't get me wrong, some of these champions are dogs, and you really got to beat them. But it's just like, and it's even another example, like if Izzy right now, since he's been beating everybody, that Dricus Duplessis fight in 2008 would have been booked last month, and they would have already fought. And guess what? You never know. As much as we think Izzy would beat the shit out of him, Dricus might have, maybe, you never know. This is where these crazy things are. But no, he doesn't have a high enough ranking. We're going to make him fight Robert Whitaker, and we're going to make Izzy sit and just waste his time. And I don't know, it's just getting crazy, man. And I don't know if I'm overreacting. I don't know what you guys think, but it's just looking back 10 years now on this thing and just noticing that it's like, man, it's not going to just overnight kill it, but it has been. It's getting weird with these rankings. And I just kind of miss back in the day when it was just, hey, you're fighting who? You're fighting this guy and you're fighting this guy. And guess what? I don't want to fucking hear it. Nobody was bitching back in the day. And maybe that was because there was no media around back then. But I'm telling you, these guys just did the thing and just fought. And if you knock somebody out, guess what? If it was good enough, yeah, you got a title shot. And guess what? Nobody bitched about it because there weren't numbers. And now there's numbers and we can all bitch. So, as always, your boy, Steven Moustaris. And let me know what you guys think. If you guys think the UFC rankings have been hurting, or even just fighter rankings in general have been hurting, you know, other promotions and stuff, let me know. Because I kind of just miss how it's, let's just have them fight, man. Who gives a shit? We don't need a number to know how badass these guys are. So, as always, your boy, Steven Moustaris, and this MMA short show. Let's go, baby.